Welcome back, guys. This video is going to be all about the most important item in all of Dota 2. This is an epic match between Team Spirit and PSG LGD, and there's only one item in the game you will ever see on 7 different heroes in the same game. And that, my friends, is our lovely Black King Bar, otherwise known as Boring King Bar. Let's go ahead and get into it so it doesn't seem so boring.
Banana slam jam.
So in this first clip, we are going to learn the importance of a Black King Bar. So what's going to happen here is that Team Spirit is trying to hold a high ground around this ward, and LGD is going to try to invade. And we see here that Faith Beyond has a refresher orb. So that means he effectively has 2 BKBs. So he's going to trade his BKB for Yathro's, and that's going to turn into a disengage from both sides. However, LGD, like we said, has a second BKB on their Razor, while Yathro only has 1 BKB. And what this is going to do is that it means that Team Spirit cannot fight because their carry doesn't have BKB. So what I really want to first emphasize is because they cannot fight, LGD then takes an objective. In this case, Roche at 37 minutes, which is an insanely important objective. So the emphasis of this first clip is to show you guys just how important BKB is, and that you should basically treat it like an ultimate cooldown, where right now it's at 90 seconds, and you need to treat it just as important as any other long cooldown spell in the game. So now that I've got your guys' attention to just how important BKB is, I would like to now break down a lot of thought processes that top tier players have for Black King Bar. So I first want to break down understanding of BKB into 2 categories. 1 is understand how it helps you with farming and map control, and 2, how it helps you with fighting. So I think the one that can be broken down with one example is farming. So in this case, what happens here is Faith Beyond got a super early BKB at 19 minutes on an offlane Razor. And if we look at the map right now, LGD has very little control of this area. They have no vision. Their carry is safely farming triangle, and their mid is farming around the mid lane. What BKB allows you to do is basically walk aggressively into areas that you did not previously control. Now, at the absolute highest level, that generally involves 2 supports following this really strong BKB guy in order to take over certain areas. In pubs, I want you guys to realize that if BKB allows you to TP out in a really dangerous situation, like say you get 3-man ganked and your reaction is to BKB TP, what BKB effectively did there was increase the area on which you controlled in which you can farm in your pubs. So if you're really going off that Midas video that we released about a week ago, really encourage you to watch that if you didn't already, is that BKB as a farming item by yourself allows you to farm more area. You shouldn't be afraid to BKB TP if it's getting you more farm. And then in this case, you're going to see Faith Beyond simply face check a really dangerous area that they have absolutely no vision of. And if he doesn't have a BKB here, then this is not necessarily safe. And while it may not seem like much, this is an extra 2 camps that if he was too afraid to farm them without a BKB, that LGD would be giving to Team Spirit. And a lot of these early BKB purchases are all about the farm area because at this stage in the game, it matters a lot more. Now, the other subject in regards to BKB is fighting. And that one's going to take a little bit more breaking down, so let's go ahead and get into that. So now that we're on the subject of fighting, I think there's 2 really important considerations to break down for when exactly you're going to use your BKB. There are games where your BKB serves as a reactionary item, meaning the opponent casts spells on you, or you see the opponent jump you and then you press BKB. And then there's other games where BKB is a preemptive item. What that means is that right before you jump or right before you go in, you're already pressing BKB. So let's first address when you use BKB preemptively. BKB being used preemptively is super important if the opponent has instant disables or stuns from outside of vision. So in this game specifically, Monkey King is quite scary, especially when they have burst from heroes like Marcy and Queen of Pain. So if he uses BKB on Razor, he's going to want to use it prior to getting stunned by Monkey King, and there's no way he's going to be able to react to that. So let's go ahead and load up this clip and see exactly how he uses that preemptively. So when thinking about fighting with BKB, one consideration that BKB allows is that, especially on non-stunning heroes, no matter what position you are, is that it allows you to run the fuck in whenever your teammates need that from you, whether or not that's you starting the fight or whether or not that's you interrupting the fight that's already started. So in this case, what you're going to see is Faith Beyond's teammates are going to get gone on the side, and he's going to use his BKB in order to disrupt this initiation from Team Spirit and effectively be a wall for the rest of his team, zoning Viper back, making Bane retreat back to the left, as well as forcing Monkey King to ult away from what's currently going on in the fight. So BKB allows you to be a wall of sorts. You don't necessarily always have to do something fancy, as long as you know you're forcing the opponent away from something that is important with the time that you're using it. This effectively nets a teamfight win for LGD, which they then turn into a Roche. Now, what I would like to note about BKB users being preemptive is there's certain heroes in Dota that function a lot better initiating onto the opponent than getting initiated onto. Examples of heroes that don't mind getting initiated onto are generally super tanky ones with spells that keep them alive. A carry like Medusa, if she were to buy a BKB. An offlaner like Underlord or Centaur. A hero that's usually going to put themselves in front and doesn't mind soaking up a lot of the damage. In this case, Razor is a good example of a hero that would be tanky, but his job functions much better if he links you before you stun him. So oftentimes BKB on Razor will be used preemptively. Now, on the other hand, heroes that almost 100% want to use BKB preemptively are ones that rely on killing heroes right at the start of the fight. Perfect examples of this are heroes like Sven and perhaps a hero like Ursa, where that 2-3 seconds of their first BKB usage will be killing somebody. So thinking about whether or not you want to get initiated onto with your BKB, or rather you would be the one initiating, does tie into your understanding of preemptive and reactionary BKB usage. Now, this next clip is going to be an example of a hero that likes to use BKB reactionarily. Heroes that like to use BKB reactionarily are generally heroes with very strong turn potential. These heroes often are heroes that hate using their spells without the opponent having already committed. An example I already gave was Medusa, in this case, a Monkey King. Last thing you ever want on Monkey King is to pop BKB and ulti and have the opponent run away. But if you can get them to go on you, survive, BKB, use your ultimate, and they've already committed, that's how you can turn fights. Also, a little side note is Yatoro clearly planned this because one item on Monkey King that helps him stay in place and still be a threat is his Ag Scepter, which effectively makes it so by spawning clones around him, even if you're disabling him, even if you're locking him down, he's still doing something. So let's go ahead and load into this fight, where you're going to see Yatoro get initiated onto. He's going to hold his BKB for quite a long time. He's going to pop it, press his ultimate, and his team is going to turn the fight to their favor, where you're going to see the immense turn potential of a hero like Monkey King because of his ulti that keeps him alive, as well as the lifesteal from Jingu. An important consideration is when you have built-in lifesteal or an item like Satanic, it greatly increases your ability to reactionarily BKB, because oftentimes a reactive BKB means that you've already lost some HP before using it. Another thing to consider from this fight when it comes to reactionarily BKBing is reactionary BKBs are especially good against roots and silences that would effectively lock you down but not prevent you from using your BKB. In these circumstances, it's ideal that you make the opponents cast these spells or items on you, because if you use your BKB and allow them to hold these spells and then they can use them on you afterwards, obviously it negates the effect of your BKB. So you're going to see that Yatoro let himself get silenced, let himself get netted, and he's still not BKBing because he's not even low enough to die yet. So notice how well he knows his limits, but also that he wasn't afraid to let these roots and silences, and an example would be slows as well from a hero like Venomancer, get casted on him, and then he waited till the last moment to pop his BKB. So having a good idea of what abilities wouldn't make you BKB right away is important to ensuring that you guys don't, what we like to call in the business, panic BKB. So we've talked about the importance of BKBs and also thinking about preemptive and reactively BKBing. Now, the biggest portion of Dota that I think a lot of people miss is the understanding of items that allow you to more easily, more straightforwardly, maybe delay the use of your BKB. Items that do this are very important. Items that either allow you to delay the usage or continue to fight after your BKB is down. So examples of ones that help you from having to use it preemptively are Lincoln Sphere, or Aeon Disc, or Sange and Yasha. Lincoln Sphere and Aeon Disc prevent either single target spells or burst damage before you use your BKB, and an item like S and Y just prevents chain stuns if you're against heroes like Lion and Earthshaker, but you also feel like you can't win the fight in the duration of the BKB. This will allow you to most likely not get chain stunned, and then you can then pop your BKB midway through the fight. It's important to note that most of these items that allow you to delay your BKB or fight after the BKB almost always are bought after you buy a BKB. So there's a lot of heroes that don't really work well with Lincolns if they don't have a BKB, but they do work well with a Lincolns. So what you're going to see here is Yatoro with a Lincoln Sphere and a BKB in the exact same fight as we just saw, and he's against Dazzle Shard, he's against Keeper of the Light with a Hex, but because he has his Lincoln Sphere, he can wait until the opponent pops his Lincoln Sphere, he uses the spell block before he uses his BKB. So what that's going to do is it's going to allow him to blink in here and not be afraid of LGD turning around and stunning him. So he's effectively holding on to his BKB to the very end of the fight where he's able to solo both supports in the back so late in the fight without any fear of disable because that Lincoln Sphere allowed him to delay his BKB usage for so long. So in the early to mid game, once you've just bought your BKB, it is super important to consider whether or not there are items that you can buy to allow you to delay your BKB, like we've already mentioned. Other items that are worth considering are items like Manta or Eul Scepter on intelligence casters. This is especially good against silences and roots. This is an example where if there are a lot of abilities that you are afraid of potentially killing you, maybe the opponent has a Skywrath Mage with an Atos, but they also have an Earthshaker with Fissure, and you'd prefer to not just use your BKB every time the Skywrath Mage Atoses you, then buying items like Manta and Eul Scepter can greatly increase the effectiveness of your BKB because they effectively remove certain spells from the checklist of what makes you have to BKB. So while I haven't mentioned this yet, if you haven't figured it out already, when you buy BKB, it is super important to understand exactly what abilities or items you were afraid of when you bought that BKB. So what you're now going to see is a shout out to support heroes and other heroes than just carries. Now, I know most core roles nowadays do buy BKBs, and a lot of you support players may have thought, BSJ, while this is all great and all for my knowledge of the game, this hasn't helped jack shit, okay? Well, I would like to tell you guys that that is not the case. One of the most important considerations after the mid game, which is the portion that allows you to delay BKBs, is acknowledgement that BKBs go down in duration, and as the game goes on, it generally becomes more difficult to kill heroes, which means that fights go longer, okay? So what you're going to see here is exactly how Team Spirit as a whole understands how important BKBs are, and then also how important it is that your carry can still fight after they've used their BKB. So what we're going to see is that Monkey King goes in, and he's going to use his BKB. First and foremost, his team has multiple Lotus Orbs and able to in order to enable his BKB from getting linked from the Razor. But now his BKB is going to run out. And if his supports had absolutely no items to help him here, you would think that Yatoro doesn't have Satanic yet, doesn't have any other defensive items than BKB, would be incapable of fighting. But here's what we're going to see. That's absolutely wrong due to the supporting cast of Team Spirit. He's going to fight Ame by himself. He's going to get Lotus Orbed by his Viper, which is not only going to remove the net, but also reflect the poison sting or poison touch from Dazzle. This is going to allow him to continue to fight. LGD is going to commit onto him. He's in trouble. And a lot of lacking BKBs is that you need to learn to kite, disengage, create situations where the opponent commits spells and then like buy some time from these spells. And you're going to see Miposhka with a sick-ass Force Staff to save his life, right? And this is going to keep him alive. So honestly, as a support, it is really important to consider items that allow your carry to still fight as the game goes on. If you guys watch my video of the Crystal Maiden solo carrying from support, that is going to be in the link in the description below, I insisted that he bought a Linken's and just continuously put it on his sniper in the late game because his sniper was against a silencer with a sheepstick. So this is the type of stuff where you guys would be surprised just how much impact you have going forward in the game if your carry has no BKB on cooldown or just no BKB at all because you might be in really low MMR and allowing them to fight without it. So it significantly influences late game team fights and can really make the difference between winning or losing a game. As Yatoro lives, he's now able to re-engage with his team, at least consider it, and at the very least he's going to live, get back to full HP, and that death could have just spelled the end for Team Spirit because they were already down by 7k and likely a lot of map control would have gone the way of LGD. Here are some important closing thoughts that I have on the item of BKB, and I believe common misconceptions that people have about the item. So first and foremost, BKB is not a be-all, end-all stun prevention. It's not also a be-all, end-all damage prevention. It is a spell immunity item. So there are a lot of spells in the game, most of which are ultimates, that pierce BKB. So it's really important for you guys to understand that if you don't know how every single ability in Dota works, all of which are unique and difficult to know case-by-case basis, you should definitely just mouse over the spell, and it says, pierces spell immunity, yes. So that means that if it's a stun, it will go through BKB if it's already used, and if it's a damaging spell, such as Queen of Pain's ultimate, if it says piercing spell immunity yes, that means it will do damage through BKB. There's also a lot of spells that if used before BKB, their effect will linger, but will not be casted initially if you are BKB'd. An example of this is Witch Doctor's Maledict. But it says pierces spell immunity no, but if you guys have found out the hard way, if you get Maledict placed on you and then you BKB and take a bunch of damage, the Maledict will still tick you down during BKB. So while this may not help you guys in terms of knowing everything in the game, I want you guys to very much understand that it is not black and white exactly how BKB works with most spells in the game. I also think a common misconception is that when you are against a lot of PKB piercing disables, such as Black Hole, Chronosphere, etc., that people think it's weird that top tier players buy BKB sometimes. So I want to say briefly that it's important to consider if you're buying BKB for stuns or for damage prevention. Because if the Faceless Void chronos you at 20 minutes into the game and all he's got is a Maelstrom and a Mask of Madness, and you're going to die to the Skywrath Mage in the back or the Snapfire in the back who's dumping 1,500 magic damage onto you, that it's worth having a BKB despite the opponent having a BKB piercing disable. And on the other hand, if they have BKB piercing damage, like Queen of Pain, but they have a lot of stuns that do not go through BKB, then you can buy BKBs to prevent the stuns, right? So it's really important to think what locks you down, and when you're locked down, what kills you, because BKB can address both separately while addressing one but not the other, but it will prevent the combo from killing you. So that's really important to understand about BKB. Okay, guys, that's it for my BKB video. Please let me know in the comments if you like this video, and also if there's anything you feel like I missed or something that was left unexplained or improperly explained. This is kind of a new type of video. I made one about Midas. I'm making this one about BKB. I really want to help you guys in-depth understand breakdowns of items, as well as just general concepts in Dota. So like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.